This Talk Business Arkansas Daily Report is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to this edition of Talk Business Arkansas's Daily Report. This is our inaugural report. We appreciate you joining us here. Today was a historic day at the state capitol. Republicans took control of both chambers, of both the House and the Senate, for the first time since Reconstruction, more than 138 years. Representative Davy Carter and Senator Michael Lamoureux will lead the two chambers. Here's what those two Republican leaders had to say. Senator Lamoureux said, quote, "To me, this session is not about Medicaid, but how we treat each other." Representative Carter said, "History has already been made, but from today forward, history will be made by what we do, not who we are." Now, Carter also made his appointments to key committee positions. This is a privilege that Speaker of the House gets to do every legislative session. Here were some of the key appointments that Representative Carter made. On the House Revenue and Tax Committee, Representative Charlie Collins, a Republican. Education Chairman, Representative James McLean, a Democrat. Insurance and Commerce, Representative Tommy Wren, a Democrat. Judiciary Committee, Representative Marshall Wright, a Democrat. Public Health, Representative John Burris, a Republican. On Agriculture and Economic Development, the chairman will be Representative Matthew Shepard, a Republican. Representative Andrea Lee, a Republican from Russellville, will head state agencies. Representative David Fielding, a Democrat, city, county, and local. Transportation Committee Chairman, Representative Jonathan Barnett, a Republican and a former highway commissioner. On the Rules Committee, Representative Stephanie Malone will head that up. She's a Republican from Fort Smith. And on the Joint Budget Committee, members elected Representative Duncan Baird, a Republican from Lowell, as the co-chairman. House members also selected Representative John Edwards, a Democrat from Little Rock, to lead the Legislative Council, which oversees legislative business in the interim period. And you can get a full list of those appointments on our website at TalkBusinessArkansas.com. That's TalkBusinessArkansas.com for those key committee positions and a wrap-up of today's activities. Now, there's going to be some big legislative fights in this legislative session that we've just started. What will some of the big issues be? I'll run through our top 5 right after this word from our sponsors.
Farm Bureau helps protect its members in more ways than you might think. They've always been the voice of agriculture in Arkansas, working on behalf of folks like me when nobody else would. And Farm Bureau stands for the values that Arkansas families care about. They've protected my right to farm and make a living, which helps everybody who likes food on the table. You know what they say, Arkansas counts on agriculture, and agriculture counts on Farm Bureau.
The Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. The State Chamber AIA is the leading voice for business at the state capitol and serves as the primary business advocate on all issues affecting Arkansas employers. Our mission is to promote a pro-business, free enterprise agenda and prevent anti-business legislation, regulations, and rules. Now more than ever, business matters. Learn more at arkansasstatechamber.com.
Well, the 89th General Assembly will certainly center its debate on Medicaid. That will be one of the big issues that will be discussed day in and day out for weeks, probably not wrapped up until the very end of the session. But there are going to be some other big issues that will be debated in this legislative session. Here's a quick rundown. Tax reform will be a big issue in this session. One of the main conflicts of the legislative session will be cutting taxes in an already tight state budget. The proposed budget from Governor Mike Beebe will likely serve as the starting point. It has a cut to the grocery tax of up to $69 million. There's no doubt Republicans will desire more tax cuts or reform beyond that, particularly on income tax reform and targeted business tax cuts. On economic development, always an A1 priority. Any legislation aimed at creating jobs moves to the front of the line for consideration. The Governor's Quick Action Closing Fund will certainly be part of the conversation. Beebe and economic development officials have also hinted that new incentives aimed at smaller, more knowledge-based entrepreneurial endeavors could be explored. And the governor hinted in a recent interview with Talk Business that he expected to make a new proposal in his State of the State address aimed at economic development. On the education front, general education funding for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade accounts for the biggest percentage of state general revenue expenditures. Desegregation funding, another hot topic of education debate, is also likely to find its way on the legislative agenda. And conservative groups will push for a variety of reforms that they claim will increase accountability in schools and improve school choices. On the higher education front, the state's colleges and universities often get the short end of the stick when budgets are tight. This session, BB's recommended about $10 million in new funding, which is better than the alternative, but comes nowhere close to meeting needs. Look for campus officials and lawmakers to debate the complicated higher education funding formula, particularly as it relates to retention and remediation. And other areas where the state legislature will spend a lot of time and energy: election reforms, the environment, energy, and social issues such as abortions and guns. And if you want a more extensive list and some in-depth analysis of some more of those issues plus others, visit our website at TalkBusinessArkansas.com for our feature story on this subject. Now, when we come back, we're going to run through the biggest business headlines of the last day, plus later on in the program, John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette joins me for analysis of day one of the legislative session. I'm Roby Brock. This is Talk Business.
Noble Strategies is a bipartisan state and federal government affairs firm with a successful track record of providing effective advocacy for business, government, and nonprofit entities. Noble Strategies provides service in areas such as lobbying, public affairs, trade association management, and marketing campaigns. Learn more at noblestrat.com.
I don't think it's going to be an easy conversation because they are very strong-willed. I think it's going to be important to us that we know that you're somewhere in a facility that looks after you, has compassion, has care, and you respect it. I mean, I'd love to look after them, I'd love to be able to take care of them, but I don't think I could. That'd be a wrong choice on my part.
Arkansas's skilled nursing and assisted living centers provide quality care for our seniors.
Well, there was a lot of action at the Capitol today, and that certainly occupied the political arena, but there were some things happening on the business front too. Here's a quick rundown of a few key headlines. Anchored by the River Market and its amenities, including museums, libraries, restaurant, bars, cultural attractions, and a presidential library, there's plenty to feel positive about in downtown Little Rock. Leaders continue to push for a revival on Main Street and have dubbed it a creative corridor. Downtown Little Rock Partnership Director Sharon Priest explains.
Well, it usually just takes one thing to get the dominoes starting to fall, and I think that one thing was, in fact, the apartments where Porter's Jazz Cafe started. When that started, it was like people started to say, oh, maybe something can happen here. While Porter's was not successful on Main Street, that doesn't mean that it wasn't the catalyst to get other things going. And we saw interest. I mean, you know, a year and a half ago, nobody was talking about anything on Main Street, and then all of a sudden it was boom, 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 and there was all kinds of stuff.
She was a guest on this week's program. Now, casino-style gambling at Arkansas's 2 racetracks crossed the finish line in December, setting a new annual record for electronic games of skill, also known as EGS wagers. According to the Arkansas Racing Commission, Hot Springs-based Oaklawn and West Memphis-based Southland have totaled $2.718 billion in EGS wagers from January through December. That's 38% higher than the previous year. 1 year ago, the 2 tracks had a combined $1.967 billion. Those electronic gambling wagers include money spent on video blackjack, poker, slot machines, and other casino-style games. And you can certainly keep up with all of the business headlines each and every day from around Arkansas at TalkBusinessArkansas.com. When we come back, we'll be joined by political columnist John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. What was his take on day one at the 89th General Assembly? We'll find out right after this word from our sponsors.
One of the real advantages of electric cooperatives membership is having a voice in our state's energy future.
Not a week goes by without important energy issues making headlines. These are issues that need to be discussed. And you should know that as policies are being developed, the cooperatives are looking out for our members, advocating what's best for you.
We are your friends and neighbors.
We are your local electric company.
The electric cooperatives.
We are Arkansas.
I was looking for a bank that could best protect my finances.
That shared my passion for my business's potential.
A bank that offered investment expertise,
lending support, insurance guidance.
A bank that delivered full financial support.
That's how I found True Balance.
True Balance.
From my bank.
From my bank.
Delta Trust and Bank, the expertise to meet all your financial needs.
I'm now joined by John Brummett. He's a political columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. You can find him in the daily newspaper about 4 times a week. You can also find him online at arkansasonline.com, and he even has his own blog. You're all out there in the Twitter sphere. You're everywhere.
I'm big on Twitter too. You got to follow me on Twitter.
You need to follow me on Twitter. I follow you, and you don't
follow anybody. I just put it out there to be followed. I'm still old media. You know, this social interchange. I haven't figured that out yet.
All right. Well, you're on a podcast now, so you're way cutting edge. Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about the 89th General Assembly, which convened today. History in the making. Republicans leading the Senate. Republicans leading the House. Do you think it's going to be very different?
Well, it's going to be, yes, it's going to be different, not necessarily in terms of the way it looks day to day, but it's going to be different in the mystery of how all this is going to actually transpire. We have a revolution. We have Republicans who have historically taken over and now lead the Arkansas General Assembly, and it's insurgent Republicans largely of a right-wing movement. And yet the two leaders in the House and Senate, Davy Carter here in the House and Michael Lamro in the Senate, are veteran Republicans more given to pragmatism and occasional centrist or moderate views. And it's just going to be fascinating to see how those two guys, particularly Carter here in the House, because he has a 1-vote lead, manages to balance all of this. Carter owes his election to Democratic support.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he is himself a conservative Republican, if not as conservative as his right flank. I think he's going to spend a lot of time making his own right flank mad, and then he's going to spend a little time making the Democratic Party mad. And the question is, how does he balance all this, and what kind of policy might we possibly get out of it? It's going to be one of possibly the most fascinating session to watch that I've ever watched, and I've been out here since 1980.
You're what we call a veteran.
Yeah, I'm looking around and I can't find anybody else who was out here in 1980 when I first came to cover the session, except for a few lobbyists out in the hall.
That's right. Today, Speaker Carter announced his committee chairmanship. There were 4 Democrats named to fairly prominent committees. The rest were all Republican. That still is a fairly bipartisan flair, about 1/3 Democrat, 2/3 Republican. And he also named to a ceremonial post former Speaker-designate Representative Darren Williams to Speaker Pro Tem. What did you make of those committee assignments? Did you see that as he had to do that to kind of secure his base?
Yeah, he just explained, he owes his election to as Speaker to block voting from the Democratic caucus, but he is himself a Republican who wants to celebrate and apply the new Republican majority. So he figured 2 Republican chairmanships for 1 Democratic chairmanship, a lot of vice chairmen, most of them are of opposite parties. It actually is, what he told me when he first decided to make this race, is that he wanted to apply the Robert Moore template of the last session. You know, we had a Democratic Speaker, Robert Moore, who suddenly encountered a 46-member Republican minority that he had not expected, and he built a sort of bipartisan approach into his committees, including the appointment of Davy Carter as chairman of Revenue and Tax. I think what Speaker Carter has tried to do is take the Robert Moore template and just flip it, and just the little advantage to the Democrats last time now accrues to the Republicans, and he will hope that it works much the same way.
Let's talk about down in the state Senate. Michael Lamro has a much bigger majority down there, 21 Republicans to 14 Democrats. Do they have to be as measured down there?
They don't have to be. I mean, if the Republicans wanted to vote as a bloc in their caucus and wanted to advance an extreme conservative agenda, 2114 ought to do it, except, just as I was answering the question, it occurred to me many of the committees are 4 and 4. Because the committee assignments had the way they fell out, some of your key committees, including public health, where Medicaid expansion would go for its authorizing legislation, is 4-4. So, actually no. It sounds like when you look at 21 to 14, they could force some things through on the floor, but the Senate always honors the committee process, almost always does. And Lamoureux is a Senate guy. As much he's proud of the tradition of the Senate and he wants to uphold it. The thing to look there is to the committees, and most of the committees are sort of locked. In fact, Lamoureux has told me he thinks that if there is a compromise that might come on Medicaid expansion, look to his public health committee, 4-4.
Well, and Cecile Bledsoe, a Republican, is the chair.
Republican chairman. She is a wife of a physician. The vice chair is Paul Bookout, a Democrat who works for a hospital. So he thinks maybe when it all boils down, that's where any compromise might come.
What else are you going to be eyeballing in this legislative session of interest to you? What do you think is the kind of out there on the horizon that people maybe aren't talking about that need to be?
I did one double take when the committee chairmanships were announced, and that was my buddy Charlie Collins as chairman of House Revenue and Tax Committee. Charlie, I like Charlie a lot, even though I agree with him on essentially nothing, but that doesn't matter. But he invited me up to Fayetteville to debate him on income tax cuts, which he wants to be essentially the Bobby Jindal of Arkansas, I think, and just to whack that income tax down and reform the rates. And he has this mantra that it would be a good jobs magnet for the state. And I've been trying to figure out how the income tax reductions will play out in this need for more money for Medicaid. But now I see that the man who wants more than anyone else to cut taxes is chairman of House Revenue and Tax. It was an interesting appointment. I'm sort of amused to see it, and I think it shows that Davy Carter agrees with Charlie Collins that we need to change these income tax rates. When they say change them, they mean lower them for nearly everybody in the middle class, which would be fine with me if they raised them somewhere else to make it revenue neutral. But the collision between needing more money for Medicaid and reforming income tax rates in a way that reduces revenue to the state, that's a big thing to watch. That's the central, it's the two prongs of a major collision, I think, in this session.
Last question for you. There's a lot of youth up here. Davy Carter under the age of 40, Michael Lamoureux under the age of 40, Duncan Baird, co-chair of the Joint Budget Committee named today, under the age of 40. And looks younger. But do you think that there may be too much youth in the leadership position, or because of term limits, do we really have youth / inexperience no matter what the age of legislators are?
I think it's less the age than the person. Davy Carter and Michael Lamoureux are, while young, experienced in the legislative process, respectful of it, capable in it, and they are deal-making, problem-solving, smart people. That's the important thing. I think they both have. I see in both of them, not to blow too much smoke at them, but I see in them a wisdom beyond their years. I really do. I think we're lucky. I think the two houses are lucky. I think the people of the state are lucky. I think Governor Mike Beebe is lucky that when he needs to work something out, he has these two guys to deal with. I think that those three people, the governor, Lamoureux, and Carter, can work well together. What I worry about is when they go back to meet with their caucuses, who are a little bit more doctrinaire in their conservatism and who want to apply more of this Republican insurgence, how that all plays out. That will be the big dynamic.
And we'll hear from Governor Beebe tomorrow. He's John Brummett. He's with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always great to have you for analysis. Hope you'll come back and do this with us again.
Whenever.
All right, that's all for this edition of Talk Business Arkansas's Daily Report. You can catch up with the latest business and political news at talkbusinessarkansas.com. I'm Roby Brock. Take care.
This Talk Business Arkansas Daily Report is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.